for my Chewbacca looking ass going. It is December 2020. My name is CJ. You are a chicken nugget. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a November wrap-up. November was kind of a hit and miss reading month for me, honestly. I read a few stunners and a few, I think the majority of the month felt like a 3-star month to me, which is a bummer, but what are you gonna do? Let's see. The Man Who Saw Everything by Deborah Levy. My first piece of fiction by Deborah Levy. I read my first piece of nonfiction by her earlier this month, and I really liked it. What a clever, well thought out, meandering, weird psychological book. We essentially follow Saul Adler, who is a Jewish historian. He's traveling in pre-unification Germany. There he meets several lovers, and we get to kind of be in a journey with him throughout flashbacks and memories of him discovering his identity, his sexuality, and kind of a misremembering of his life. It's really interesting. I definitely, like, immediately after I finished this, I felt the need to reread it because I'm sure there's so much that went over my head. Really thoughtful, artful writing. Such a turning on its head plot. Not like a thriller twist by any means, but still that same kind of energetic, whoa, what's happening to me as I'm reading it. Loved it. Remains of the Day. I DNF'd this book at page 44. Not the right time in my life to read this story, which is about a English butler who is about to go on a country drive because he has some days off, and he's going to be reflecting on his career path, his boss, and I didn't feel any investment to find out anything further about this character. I know, I mean, this won the Nobel Prize in Literature, so I'm sure it's a phenomenal book, but it wasn't the right time and place for me. I do want to read Never Let Me Go. I know Grace loves this author, so it's not like, you know, the writing was strong. The writing was definitely strong to me, but the plot itself, I just like could not care less. And I couldn't chuck on with it. I just couldn't. At the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. This is a really smart, carefully crafted, multi-generational family saga that is centered around a teenage pregnancy. Not to be a derivative, but I immediately thought of James Baldwin's If Beale Street Could Talk, which centers also around a Black family and an unexpected teenage pregnancy. I thought this was just like so succinct. The characters were so rich. The writing was beautiful, really strong, lyrical, prosy writing. You know me. And it talked a lot about legacy and who inherits what and intergenerational wealth within the Black community in a really interesting way, and also class education and what's gained from that within that community. I really like this. I can see why this is such a popular, well-selling book, and I think it deserves all of that and more. I also read Kindred this month by Octavia Butler. I had read the Parable of the Sower series when I was in late high school, early college, and I really enjoyed it. Unfortunately for me, I would say this I can't really say anything negative about Octavia Butler. I understand that this was an inventive, groundbreaking, seminal piece of science fiction, and it was written by a Black author, and I think that's awesome. I also didn't really like it, but I understand the fact about myself that a book has to have beautiful writing for me to like it. I think the plot was tightly knit between this and the characters were well developed, but the writing was so matter-of-fact. The writing was so matter-of-fact and kind of cut and dry, which did have a nice duality with he will not take the Octavia Butler slander. I know, I hear you. It have a nice kind of duality about writing about such atrocities of the antebellum South and slavery in such a dry, not flowery to the point way. I don't know, there was something to me that didn't interest me about this book, specifically about the fact that like I knew how it was going to end. Dana was alive in the future, so obviously she helped her former family slave owner to not die, and I wanted him to die. I don't know. Funny Weather, Art and Emergency. Full transparency, I did not read every word of this book, but it's not one that you have to. It's a collection of essays and interviews with people and kind of articles that Olivia Lang has written. First half is a section about artists' lives. So she kind of has these little synopsises of 4 different artists, I believe. I read the one on Basquiat, and I also read the one on, who else was it? God. Georgia O'Keeffe. And they were great. I didn't know a lot about the personal history of either of those artists. I just like, they're obviously institutional and in the canon forever. But it was cool learning about careers within art and culture. What? I have to get Kiki toilet paper. Where were we? I love this cover too, by the way. Interviews with Allie Smith. Who else was in it? Hilary Mantel. So, you know, some booktube babies. They were interesting. No essays. And then how did this finish again? Oh yeah, it was like excerpts from novels that were in circulation, like I Love Dick by Chris Kraus, which I've read, and then Cost of Living by Deborah Levy. So I didn't really understand what the point of that was. But it's interesting. A smorgasbord, something you can pick and pull from. I picked this up when I needed a break from a novel, and if you care about political weather and the overlap of art and culture being able to be a buoy to ride that out, pick it up.
Oh, a text message?
Mm-mm.
I saw a cat.
Where?
Backyard.
What flavor? What flavor?
Gray.
Anything else about it?
Had a bell on. His name was Chickadee.
Chickadee? Really good cat name. Okay, next up, The Cost of Living by Deborah Levy, which is part of her series that she titles A Working Autobiography. Loved it. I think this totally could have edged on like cringy white lady artist who is telling us about the inside of the art world and all of the glamour and whatever she's exposed to, but it was really vulnerable and talked about a space in her life after her divorce where she was really in a cycle of remaking her life and her identity and what she wanted her day-to-day look like. And she's such a strong, beautiful writer that I felt invested the whole way through, even after, you know, never really reading any other Deborah Levy before. Form is like really fragmenty and in these like little mini essays, which I loved and perfect to dip in and out of, but I did read this all in one sitting, so you can also do that. I loved it. A lot about womanhood, kind of like cis womanhood specific, I would say. So not like, there's not like a lot of representation of other kinds of womanhood in here, but it is an autobiography, so I don't know, not really going from that from her. She is a white cis lady. Okay, The Body Keeps the Score. I reread this this month, not all of it because this is like big old chunky scientific text, and I really liked it. It was a really informative, science heavy walkthrough of how the brain and body connection and different modalities of healing you can take place in after you've experienced trauma, no matter what kind of trauma that is. So it's like, there's a chapter on like EDMR therapy, SSRIs, yoga, inhabiting your body, breathing work, and just like a good refresher or introduction to controllable things that you could do for yourself that help repave the neural pathways in your brain that have been rerouted because of trauma in your life. Highly recommend. Isn't this a Matisse, right? It is. It's a Matisse. Memorial by Brian Washington. I wish I liked this more than I did, but this was a solid 3-ish stars for me at the end of the day. This follows, what are their names? Mike and Benson. Mike and Benson, who are in a gay relationship, 2 men, interracial relationship in Houston, and they're navigating how their relationship transpired and what the future of it is going to be as Mike's father is passing away in his hometown in Japan. It's definitely an exploration of a dysfunctional relationship, family dynamics. I've read this review, I've read reviews of this where it's like, oh, the language about food is so compelling and so strong, but like it's not even, that's not even something that comes to mind when I'm recounting this book, is the mentions of food. I don't know, I think that was a stretch in the reviews I've seen. I thought some parts of this were strong and some were weak, and the narrative voices of Benson and Mike were almost incomprehensible from one another, and that felt a little bit lazy to me, but maybe it was on purpose, because sometimes in a dysfunctional relationship people can blend into the same person. I don't know. Supper Club, I barely remember this because I read this at the beginning of the month. It's about a group of women in London who form an art collective that is all about eating and taking up space and serving their appetites. I thought it was a little lazy. I thought the writing wasn't strong, and I don't think there was anything revolutionary or transgressive about this collective. And I remember having explicit issues with some of the fat-phobic language in this book, but I didn't highlight it because I want to resell this book and get my money back. Bad art writing, like bad descriptions of performance art. I didn't like it. Read Adele by Leila Slimani, which is one of Grace's favorite books. Kind of another narrative about hunger, desire, ownership, and control, but this time it was about Adele, who is a married mother in Paris, navigating a sex addiction. I thought it was an interesting exploration of female desire, and that's about it, really. I don't think it's gonna stay with me long term. I like dipping into that character's head for a little bit during the time that I read that book, but I don't know, it doesn't have any serious legs for me. Sisters by Daisy Johnson. I really liked this book. A literary mystery thriller, I would say, and I wasn't really anticipating that going in. It's about two sisters. I don't have it in front of me. I loaned it out to a friend, so I think their names are July and September, and they are navigating an unknown drama/trauma that has caused them to move away from their home. They kind of have a dysfunctional relationship with one another. There's a lot of power imbalance between the two siblings, and their caretaking roles for one another are fucked up. Their dynamic is fucked up. As you read more in the book, you discover not everything is as it seems, and I think there was like a satisfying, beautiful twist at the end. I really liked it. It surprised me how much I liked this book. Reality of Memory. It's a collection of essays that are about disaster culture, disaster preparedness, and how society reacts to large-scale trauma and disasters. Some of these were really interesting. Recollections on the internet's obsession with disaster coverage and our addiction to watching and viewing and discussing the world's ills. This was pre-2020. This was pre-2020. There was one essay in particular that was about pandemics, which was so telling. It was written in 2016. And there was also, oh yeah, there was like an essay about the Titanic that was really interesting, and Chernobyl. Overall, a good book to pick up if you like essay collections and sinking into that dark part of your brain. Okay, that's it. I read some books this month. Here they are. It was good, kind of. What did you read this month? Let me know. In particular, I would love suggestions for any books that are particularly good on audio. I have a road trip coming up, and I would love to know if there's a narrator you love or a book that's better on audio versus being read physically, whatever you think. But here we go, lads. Here's the big kahuna stack. Here's the thumbnail, baby. All right, I'll see you later.